Shalom. Kohalagi Halbashimi Oshad, Bahashim Kakadash. Double honors to the elder apostles and elder bishops of GMS, even the elders that go before them that taught us his truth. Shalom and salutations to all the brothers that put you in word and truth and in sincerity, the hopeful elect tabernacle of David. To the Aquath that are listening, learn, and being a pillar of rest, 144,001 the hopeful elect of Israel. I am the brother / elder. Shalom and salutations to you all. And this is the World War III Daily Update. Shalom and salutations to you all. On Tuesday, War and Rumors of War Tuesday, where we take Matthew 24 and 6. In the King James, we read it, and ye shall hear of wars and rumors of war. There's the famous phrase. See that you be not troubled, for all these things will come to pass, but the end is not yet. Then what we do is we go and read these other versions, and we find the differences. Here in the NIV, we have wars and rumors of war. In LT, we have wars and threats. So we have rumors and threats. Down here at the GNT, we have news. Rumors, threats, news, and reports of wars. Reports, news, threats, and rumors. What do we have? That's Scott Ritter. Trump's fantasy crushed by Putin. Is this a rumor? Is this a threat? Trump's fantasy crushed by Putin. Is that a threat? Is it news? Is it a report? Take it away, Nima. Dialogue works 87 minutes ago. Take it, Nima.
Hi, everybody. Today is Tuesday, May 20th, 2025, and our friend Scott Ritter is back with us. Welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And sorry for being late. Let's get started, Scott.
You don't have to. Let me just say, I got to fix the background here. It's none. There we go. Yeah, because it was flickering. Because I had it on green screen mode or something. So,
yeah.
Anyway, I apologize to you, and I apologize to your audience for being late. But there's just a lot going on, and it is what it is. So.
Let's start, Scott, with the phone call between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump.
Okay, I'm going to stop it right there. And this is the last I'll say. I'm going to let him talk up to about 7 minutes. Where are we at? Yeah, so very important. They're going to discuss the phone call, right, that this is talking about, Trump's fantasy crushed by Putin. So I just wanted to set that up. And then at about minute 7, he's going to get, yeah, so that's the phone call, right? So let's listen close. Take it away.
And the outcome, it seems that Vladimir Putin just was describing the details of what's going on in the battlefield in Ukraine. And they were talking about in my opinion, the main point that Vladimir Putin was making is the way that the United States is providing Ukraine with weapons and they're capable of attacking Russia. He talked about the terrorist attack before the victory day, and on the day of victory, the way that Ukrainians were somehow threatening Russia.
Threatening.
Your take on what has happened in this call between the two leaders?
Rumors, threats.
I think Vladimir Putin was very honest and forthright with Donald Trump about the reality that currently exists. And it's not a good reality for Ukraine. It's a very bad reality for Ukraine. But I think Putin, rather than being arrogant and forceful, first of all, I think he respects the fact that Donald Trump is committed to peace. Let's never forget that the previous administration just wasn't talking to the Russians. The last time Biden spoke with Putin was in Geneva in June 2021, where he prefaced the meeting by calling Putin a killer. And then he lied to Putin. Wasn't honest about anything. Here we have an American president who's taking political risks the easiest thing in the world politically for Donald Trump to do is to continue, given the amount of Russophobia that exists in the United States, given the support that he'd get from Europe, and then the ego boost he'd get from the Ukrainians, calling them, a hero, would be to continue the policies of Biden or even, improve upon them. I don't think the American people would reject this. I think if it was sold properly, the American people would fall in behind because they've been conditioned to be anti-Russian. But Trump is going against the grain. He's taking the hardest possible path, and it's a difficult path. I mean, some people like myself would like him to be more forceful in putting pressure on Ukraine, but we have to remember that there's a lot of political obstacles here that have to be overcome. It's easy for somebody sitting, hundreds of miles away from Washington, D.C. to say, get out of NATO and tell the Europeans to pound sand and withdraw your embassies and tell Congress this. But that's not the real world. The real world we live in is far more complicated. And Trump has to navigate all of this in the pursuit of trying to bring an end to the conflict in a way that is beneficial to Russia and the United States. Because that's one of the things that Trump emphasizes all the time, is that this isn't about continuing to bring Russia down, that he's actually trying to create a better life for Russia and the United States and the world. And I think Putin respects this tremendously, because I think Putin understands the political risks that Donald Trump takes. And so Putin is working with Trump to make a negotiated settlement possible, but it's only going to be possible based upon the Russian reality. There is no other reality. And I think Putin's task in talking to Trump is to educate him. The Russians have been very honest with Steve Witkoff. Witkoff has come back and spoken about the Russian reality. When the Russians spoke to Rubio and Waltz before he was fired, they both came out and said there's a Russian reality, that we have to address the Russian reality. So the Russians have been, very successful in communicating this, but the other players aren't up to the task of standing up to the pressure. Rubio goes to Europe and then bends to the will of Europe to start articulating things that indicate an exhaustion with this peace process. Yes, Europe wants Trump to be exhausted by this so that he then withdraws from it and then supports Europe's policies and supports Ukraine. They're trying to suck him into, continuing Biden's policies. I think Putin is appreciative of the fact that Donald Trump has shown an ability to withstand that. But what's essential here is that Putin has to reaffirm in Trump's mind, some essential truths that sometimes get watered down by Marco Rubio or Scott Bessent or Keith Kellogg and other people who don't have peaceful coexistence with Russia first and foremost on their mind. And they also need to put steel in the spine of people like J.D. Vance and Tulsi Gabbard and even Steve Witkoff, people who I think are on the right side but falter in the face of opposition. And one of the reasons why they falter is that Donald Trump himself is all over the map. Saying this one day, saying that the other day. A conversation with Vladimir Putin, I mean, that you are literally speaking to the source. And it helps strengthen Donald Trump. It empowers Donald Trump to say, I spoke with Putin for 2 hours. I know what Putin thinks, as opposed to relying on the interpretation
Rumors and innuendo. Propaganda.
From other people. So I think this phone call was invaluable, and it creates the possibility, because I think one of the things that's going to happen on this phone call is that Trump is going to wait a couple weeks. There was no pressure on Putin to stop the war. And I think the battlefield is evolving in a way that just is to the detriment of Ukraine on a daily basis. And the Russians are taking the current reality and improving it from the Russian perspective and putting the Ukrainians in a far worse position. So the longer this war goes on, the weaker Ukraine becomes, And the more apparent, the longer the United States avoid decisive engagement on behalf of Ukraine, the more difficult it becomes for Europe to pretend that they have the ability to step in and fill the gap. And maybe, just maybe, Ukraine will wake up to the reality that the best deal they have is the one that's on the table today. If they continue to wait much longer, as the Russians insinuated, we won't be talking about 4 oblasts that are part of Russia. We'll be talking about 8. And the other thing that people need to understand about Russia is that, there's that old saying, slow to harness, fast to ride. The Russians, aren't putting a lot of demands out there. Everything they've done, they've been compelled to do in a cause-effect relationship that has them reacting to actions taken by Ukraine and their Western supporters. Here,
they're being poked. The bear's being poked, and they're going to have to respond coming up here. There's nothing that Trump can do about it. So basically, this meeting, this call was what? Let's get that and we'll go ahead and end it. It was PACE and what? SAEFTY. SAFETY? That. I just hit the wrong. Peace and. Peace. And. Let's try it again. Peace. Is that how you spell peace and? Yeah. 1 Thessalonians 5:3. For when they shall say what? Peace and safety, then shall sudden destruction cometh upon them. Salah. Then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. Let's read that here. Yep. 1 Thessalonians 5:3 in the NLT. When people are saying everything is peaceful and secure, then disaster will fall on them as suddenly as a pregnant woman's labor pains begin, and there will be no escape. All right, so anyway, one step closer to the declaration of what? The third. Well, with that, we hope that the elector edified your brother and few sisters. Shalom.